Hello, my name is Brian Iinuma. Our company is Strategic Systems Group. We are a Los Angeles-based IT consulting firm and experts in enterprise resource planning. I'm here with my colleague, Mr. Peter Moore. Peter, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Peter Moore, president of Wild Oak Enterprises in Santa Monica. I do strategic work with CIOs and their leadership teams to help them evolve from a cost center support function to a strategic business partner and work with Brian and his team on the implementation of those programs.
That's terrific. Thank you. All right, for today, I think we have planned a little bit of description of what we have in mind for a series. So this is the first in a series of videos. And from what I understand of your work, we have quite a few interesting topics to cover. And maybe just kind of briefly, we can rattle off a few of them, and then we'll begin with one of them today.
Yeah, I think, as I said, one of the things that every CIO and his or her leadership team face in the work that I do, and you and I have talked about the work you do as well, they really are looking for how they can increase the business value they bring to the organization.
Sure.
And historically, a lot of companies have looked at IT as solely a cost center support function.
Mm-hmm.
And that means basically they want to run the business, make sure all their systems of record, ERP, finance, HR, run properly and are compliant and secure. And that's important. But for the most part, all the money that's been spent on those systems, the value has already been received. And so in order for IT, particularly now, with all the disruption from digital technology, to increase business value, it has to look for other ways to engage with the organization. So what we want to talk about, I think, in the different sections is how does IT evolve through cost center support function to a service provider, to a business enabler, then a business driver, and ultimately a full strategic business partner. And as you go through each of those steps, we have different programs and processes to help you get there, which we'll go into further detail on in future discussions.
Okay, terrific. All right, maybe to begin, I think we had discussed our first segment and maybe describing something about a chart that you have developed. And forgive me, I think I called it, or you called it, the IT maturity model. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, so maybe we can talk a little bit about that chart and the IT maturity model.
Yeah, what we're doing there is the chart really has those 5 steps that I just talked about. And the important first step is to bring the CIO and their leadership team together and have a really honest, open conversation about where on the 5 steps does IT reside today within your organization. So let's say, for the sake of discussion, that they agree that they're on the cost center support function step. All right. So the next question is, where do you want to go next? And that's to become a service provider. What do you need to do to get there? Well, to do that, you have to understand how you're operating today in the sense of where is your budget being spent and where are the time of your people being spent? Mm-hmm. And what we'll do is an assessment of that. And what that assessment will probably identify is that 80 to 90% of your current budget and current resources are spent running the business. And again, as I said, that's not bad, but that really minimizes the business value that you can contribute to the business and its growth goals and performance objectives going forward. So first we have to document that. Then we can go in and say, all right, how do we change that equation? So if today we're 20-80, 80% run, 20% grow, we set a target for the next 12 to 18 months to get to 50-50. And just think about the impact that your team could have on the organization with your evolution from being only 20% focused on growth to now 50% focused on growth using the new technology tools, whether it's social or mobile or artificial intelligence or all the things that are out there today. If we don't have the focus and the concentration to do that work, you can't make that contribution to the organization.
Perfect. Well, one of the things that has come up in our conversations previously is this notion of business value, or the notion of spending time running versus growing the business. And I think that historically, and I have been there as well, thought about IT as a tactical role of focused on getting the business accounting squared away, things that are more inventory related, those sorts of things. But your concept is different. Your concept is, yes, those things are important. However, there is business value in there someplace as well. So how does a company uncover that?
The way to think about it is, and again, a lot of what we talk about in our client engagements is vocabulary. So let me just introduce sort of three terms that we use. Most of the work that IT does today is around maintaining systems of record. And as you said, Brian, those are the ones that run finance and the supply chain, and you have to do those, and they have to be secure and compliant, and everything else that the organization requires. That only allows you to sort of optimize how you actually run the operations. The second group is what we call systems of engagement. That's driven by how your employees, your customers, and other key stakeholders want to engage with the organization. So for example, if you were a bank and only had branches, you would not be able to engage employees who wanted to do their banking on their iPhone or their Android. You have to change and adapt. And employees coming in saying, I don't want just to have the information I need for my work on my laptop. I want it on my iPhone, or I want it on my iPad, etc. And then the third, which is really now emerging as probably going to be the most critical, is what we call systems of intelligence. And that's all the data that any organization has today. And just to give you an interesting fact to show you the biggest opportunity, all the data that was generated in 2021 of all the companies around the globe, all that data, only 2% was deployed in 2022. 98% of all the data available to companies wasn't even used. And again, I think that speaks to the huge opportunity that any good forward-thinking, leader of an IT shop can say, wait a minute, look at the upside if we just change the way we engage and utilize our resources.
That's a terrific example. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in your maturity model. The very last segment in that maturity model talks about being a strategic partner. Yep. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, what really happens there, and you have to earn that, right? A lot of when I first started doing this about 8 or 9 years ago, you said, well, we're never at the business table, and we haven't earned the right to be there. You have to bring something to the table. But the point being is, when you're there, it's because digital technology is really so critical to the overall success of the organization that if that point of view and that voice isn't represented at the business growth strategy discussions, your company is at a huge disadvantage.
Sure.
And part of it is, you have to create digital acumen across an organization. Mm-hmm. That's part of becoming a strategic partner. You have to come in and initiate discussions. I mean, for example, right now, everybody's talking about artificial intelligence. Okay, another statistic to get everybody sort of oriented to what we're talking about: billions of dollars were spent on artificial intelligence projects last year. 85% of those projects failed. Okay, so the point being is, in this case, artificial intelligence isn't the bright new shiny object. It's a set of tools and processes, and you have to figure out what's the problem you're trying to solve within your organization, and
Sure.
Can artificial intelligence help you do it? That's the dialogue that goes on when you're a strategic partner. You initiate it, you facilitate it, you get the overall organization to come to consensus about when and how they should use something like AI.
All right, Peter, this is good for our first segment. Thank you so much. So why don't we break here, and then we'll continue with the following segment shortly.
My pleasure. Thanks.